You'll have heard a lot about the Nikon ZR and its amazing video features, but it's more than just a cine cam. It's a regular stills camera too, and I want to explore some of the reasons this camera appeals to me for stills photography, because that's been my career for more than 25 years now. There are some great features on the Nikon ZR for stills photographers, and they can easily get overlooked with all the hype over its cine features. So let's take a look at the good, the bad, and the awesome of the Nikon ZR for stills photography. The Nikon ZR is compact, it's lightweight, and it's packed with technology. For stills photography, there is plenty of joy in this camera body. I was expecting it to be heavier, but it feels very light in your hands, and having the teeny tiny little 40mm f2 on it does help to make it feel light as well. The build quality is great. It's a very lightweight magnesium alloy. It feels premium and feels like it'll take a knock. There is a strong design philosophy here to minimize the number of physical dials and buttons on the body. This is partly because there just isn't much room on such a small camera. Their design solution has been something they call the I menu, which you can configure to have quick access to all those features you deem most essential. Spending time to configure your I menu to suit your needs is critical to getting the most out of this camera. The I menu pops up when you tap the rear menu button, and to enter the full menu, you have to hold down that same button for a second longer. Inside the ZR is a lot of great technology. It's got fast memory with that CF Express slot, essentially 24 megapixel, which is plenty of pixels to me. Plus it's got some effective stabilization on the sensor. Nikon have put a good number of dedicated stills photography features in here, such as the pixel shift mode for high res or low noise, or both, and it does focus stacking and multiple exposures. There's even a pre-burst so you can capture a moment before it becomes a moment. You have access to lots of settings to fine-tune the autofocus, the usual variations on subject detection and zone, and there's excellent focus peaking when you're shooting in manual focus mode. The Nikon ZR does come with user settings, so you can define up to 4 user settings for your stills and video. So that's a lot. That's good stuff for most photographers. And just quietly, this is a powerful little video camera that features internal RAW recording and up to 60p without cropping. There are a few things on the ZR that didn't suit me so much, mostly with the layout of the buttons and dials. Let's quickly run through the list. First off, there's a soft power button instead of a physical on-off switch, and I found myself hitting this while changing lenses, and sometimes it got activated while the camera was floating around inside my bag. I miss having a tactile switch that I can feel if the camera is on or off. There is also no mode dial, as mode selection is pushed onto the screen instead. I'm not so much a fan of that. Changing modes on the ZR requires your full attention. The rear of the camera is very limited for space because they put a giant 4-inch screen back there. That means instead of a 4-way controller or jog dial at the back, they have a joystick. This takes a little getting used to when navigating menus. The shutter button itself feels very different to any other camera I've used. It has a long travel before the half shutter kicks in, but then almost no travel at all to go from half press to fully commit the shutter. It doesn't feel as tactile as I would have expected, and I really wish I could set the rear dial to give me direct access to exposure compensation instead of that being a 2-step process. The only way to access minimum shutter for auto ISO is through the full menu, and it can't be assigned to a function button or the My Menu shortlist. One final comment: it is great that Nikon have given us 4 customizable user settings on the ZR, but their execution in the menu feels like a work in progress. It's a little bit clunky. Stills and video are also saved as pairs into a single user setting, which can lead to some confusion and overwriting settings without realizing it. Okay, so that's the good and the bad. Now for the awesome. That 4-inch screen is absolutely amazing. This is a game changer. Some photographers absolutely do not like shooting with a rear screen. They hate it. I've heard a lot of arguments on this over the years, from issues with close focus if you wear glasses to not being bright enough in the daylight. If you are certain you can't use a flippy screen, then you know this camera is not for you. The reason I love a good flippy screen is simple. I can be more creative with my perspectives and more engaged with my subject without the camera in my face. I have freedom to angle my camera down low or way up high. For everyday use, there's a particular technique that I recommend for stills photography with a flippy screen. I keep the camera down low at waist height with the screen flipped up towards my eyes. My left hand holds the weight of the camera. My right hand drives the shutter. This feels very natural, and it can help shield direct sunlight off the screen if you forgot to turn up the brightness, and it puts a little more distance between your eyes and the screen, which can make a big difference if you wear glasses like I do. Best of all, when you're on the streets and shooting portraits of people, they can still see your face and they can see your smile, and that makes a really big difference. For me, the only thing better than a flippy screen is a really big flippy screen. Nikon are onto a winner here. Having the bigger screen really makes a huge impact on my composition. The big screen is a big deal.
Run away with me, to run away with me. Don't tell your friends, we'll let them know we're safe later on. The road is calling, sun on our skin, sleeping under stars when it's gone.
If you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button and maybe drop me a quick hello in the comments to share what you like about the Nikon ZR2. I also publish a monthly zine to share my photography and thoughts, and you can subscribe to my newsletter to get that in your inbox every month. Each year, I also run a couple of photography workshops and tours. Visit ewenbell.com to check out my zine and see more of my photography. The Nikon ZR is built on a fundamental design principle to minimize the physical dials and buttons and shift as much as possible to that massive 4-inch screen at the back. This is something of a new direction in camera design, and as camera bodies get smaller and smaller, there is simply less room to put physical controls on the body. Nikon have made a choice to build something tough and resilient instead of jamming in extra controls, and they've thought very hard about how to make this work. Their main solution is called the I menu. It's like a quick menu on other cameras, and when you tap the menu button on the ZR, the I menu is what comes up. To access the full menu, you need to press and hold the menu button for a second longer. The I menu is great because it's a clean set of options and you can configure what goes into it yourself. You can make this menu exactly what you need it to be. If you shoot landscapes, you may want quick access to pixel shift mode or the intervalometer or bracketing or ISO or any of a number of things. Nikon call them user settings, other brands call them custom settings. These are a powerful tool for photographers who need to change between different modes of capture often and quickly. For example, switching from street photography to flash in the studio or going out to shoot stars at night. There are 4 user settings on the ZR, 4 for stills and 4 for video. Nikon have a few defaults for their user settings, which I think is a great idea. More brands could be doing this really, but you can save anything you want into these slots, and once set up, each of these user settings will appear in the mode selection, right alongside the usual PASM. So you can quickly jump between these presets and know the camera is set up exactly how you need it. If you want to make your own user settings, this is simple enough. Start by setting up the camera in whatever mode you plan to shoot with. Let's say aperture priority at f2 using auto ISO and a minimum shutter of 200th of a second. Then you go into the menu and save your current settings. Once saved, you can rename the user settings to remind you of what you actually stored in there. In the description of this video, I will have a link to my website where you can grab a copy of my own custom setup for the Nikon ZR, along with instructions on how to apply them to your Nikon ZR. My 4 settings are as follows. User 1 is for street and portraits, that's shooting at f2. User 2 is landscapes with pixel shift, and that's mostly at f10. User 3 is studio flash. User 4 is astro and stars. The Nikon ZR is compact, it's lightweight, and it's packed with technology. That big rig screen, that's what really defines this camera. It is an essential part of shooting video, but for stills photography, there's going to be mixed reviews. Some folks just don't want to shoot with the rear screen, they want the viewfinder, and I am not one of these people. I love the rear flippy screen and the creative freedom that it brings. And the ZR redefines what is possible for a mirrorless camera. This is kind of a big deal. For stills photography, there is plenty of joy in this camera body. I can see the ZR being used for landscape work where packing light is an advantage, especially given the high resolution pixel shift feature. I can see this as a discrete camera for urban photography paired with that little 40mm f2 lens, or maybe even the 28mm f2.8 from Nikon. I can see this camera finding a home in studio settings where you need fast memory card and a hot shoe that can sync with your flash. I also think 24 megapixels is a good choice for this sensor. On a cine camera, it really helps to avoid cramming in too many pixels, because the less pixels you have, the less processing and heat you generate when shooting higher frame rates. For stills photography though, 24 megapixel might feel like a trade-off, but I think it's a good balance, and certainly for my professional work, 24 megapixels is the sweet spot. And I totally get why there are times when more pixels really matter, wildlife photography for example, but the ZR is never going to be your wildlife camera because telephoto work really does need a suitably aligned viewfinder. For serious landscape work, maybe some extra pixels can be useful, but that's where the pixel shift mode comes in handy on this camera. That pixel shift technology really does work and the results are marvelous. If you are already a Nikon shooter and you're looking for an upgrade, then I would definitely look closely at the ZR. And even if you don't think the ZR is the right camera for you, the good news here is that in years to come, that 4-inch screen might be popping up in a lot more future camera bodies. I for one would love to see a push away from cameras with more pixels on the sensor and instead start giving us better pixels on the flippy screen. That is a win for me. I want to say a quick thank you to Nikon Australia for loaning me the ZR and a few lenses. I appreciate their support to make this video. Thank you to all the people who have subscribed to my channel recently and hit that like button. Your support helps me to keep making videos. Pop onto my website at ewenbell.com to see my zines and photos. And thanks for joining me. Have a great day.